All right, guys, let's get into the M123K. Definitely a fan favorite in the LMG class. Thank you, developers, for putting in such a fun gun. Because of its high rate of fire at 830, you're rivaling some of the carbines, you're getting up into some of the SMG territory, etc. So it's got a very fast rate of fire. Now, it's going to be coupled with a couple of downsides. One, it's like a spicy taco. This sucker's got some kick to it, and so you're going to have to take that into consideration when you're diving into it. It's got an average aim down sights time for some of the LMGs. The reload time's a little bit longer, right? The muzzle velocity, it's okay, but there are things we can do to deal with that in terms of attachments. So let's dive into some of the attachments and a couple of ways you can build out the gun. First off, let me dive into the firing range. I want to show you some features of the gun in terms of recoil. Off the bat, one of the things you're going to notice is the sucker has a whole lot of recoil, right? So as soon as you start shooting, that muzzle is going to go flying up in the air and you're going to be like way, way off target, right? It's rather difficult to deal with. So in terms of recoil control, you might want to consider getting some sort of a grip to help you with that. So here is like the I have no grip on there. There's just full recoil. There's like a slight and a moderate and significant and greatly reduced recoil. So you can see a comparison of how much more recoil control you get. To me, slight doesn't really do much of anything. So I'm at least aiming for like moderate or better in terms of recoil control. I feel like that actually makes some sense of a difference for it. In terms of additional layer for recoil control after you deal with the underbarrel, like for me, I love running the classic. We'll get into the actual grip I use. I don't actually use the classic on this one, but we do have some choices for the barrel. It is nice to increase the muzzle velocity from 670 up to 837. When you're up in the 800s, I feel like you're fairly competitive when you're into a long range. Let me dive in here and show you a little bit about what the barrels are doing. So here is the base barrel, there's the heavy extended barrel, and then there's a short barrel. Notice the short barrel, like it's not really helping you out with recoil at all. You're kind of just all over the place. Versus the heavy and the heavy extended, they cost the same amount, and it's going to increase your muzzle velocity if you can get the heavy extended. Now, notice that there's a slight penalty of the weapon draw speed, so you're going to have to keep that in consideration if you're flipping weapons around and all that sort of fun stuff. So, the other thing you would want to consider would be like a muzzle. Here are a series of comparisons of the muzzle, all with the classic grip, so you can see how they add to recoil control. So this would be like the linear comp, and linear comp is trying to make all of your recoil, instead of moving left and right, it basically just moves it straight up and down. So you got like a nice vertical line. And then you can go into the brake. So the compensated brake, this is the one I feel like does the best job at recoil control. So with the classic grip and the compensated brake, notice like all of your bullets in a pretty tight pattern when you're firing at somebody. And then lastly, if you need to stay off the radar, you could drop down to the light and suppressor, and that's what this recoil pattern looks like with the light and suppressor and that classic grip on it. So you've got some pretty solid recoil control with this kind of a setup. The one thing you do have to notice is the damage. There is a bit of a damage drop off, right? We're go down to like 17 damage for bullets. What if you're burst firing to try to help you control some of that when you're shooting far away? It's not terrible. You just something to keep in mind. If you're just going to hold down the button, even with all that recoil control. So again, I've got the light and suppressor on there. I've got the heavy extended barrel. I've got the vertical grip. So it is, well, here, let's even drop down to the brake to be the best possible recoil control. As soon as you start shooting, like that muzzle's going to go wild on you for those farther out targets. Up close, it really makes no difference. It is very easy to control, right? Just a slight pulling down on the mouse. It's not terrible, but just have that in the back of your head. Because of that high rate of fire, it kicks quite a bit. So in terms of build, if you want to do a full recoil control, you certainly could do it with this, right? We've got the brake, we've got the heavy extended barrels for the increased muzzle velocity, we've got the vertical grip, and then you're kind of off and running. And then you actually have enough points to use something like a thermal sight, for example, to give you great visibility for your targets. Another way you can do it is if you start using this build and you're finding, hey, I'm losing some of the gun battles because I can't aim down sights fast enough, like I can't pull up my scope in order to see folks, let me offer a different build you can consider doing. You could, if you can handle the recoil loss, you could drop down to the short barrel because that's going to enable a faster transition to aim down sights. Like look how far down we're able to bring the aim down sights time into 300 milliseconds. Now you're rivaling some of the assault rifle aim down sight time. So when you're playing up close, the short barrel is reasonable because you're only firing at targets really close by. You can still keep your light and suppressor to stay off the radar. And I couple that with a canted stubby grip. So I'm at least getting moderate recoil control and a faster transition to aim down sights. I feel like that's like a pretty good balance for it. This is really designed to play really up close and personal. I'm not going to be shooting at folks really far away. And so I can tend to just run like a pretty basic sight and you're really off and running. So a couple of different ways you can build it, right? One with like full recoil control, the heavy extended, the grip, the brake, or if you're going to be way up close and personal and you're worried about your aim down sights, like you keep dying because you're not aiming fast enough, you might want to go this route. The one thing I would say is consider dropping out of the short and using the heavy extended and losing out on some of that aim down sight speed. That's why it's critical to run the stubby grip if you feel like you're losing those aim down sight battles because, oh, sorry for getting out of there. The the improvement you get to recoil control, especially if you're laying down lots of cover fire, is pretty significant with that heavy extended barrel. So let me go back into the fire range and just review that part too. I mean, look at the difference between the heavy extended and the short barrel, right? You've got a lot more recoil control over time. So if you're going to go the route of, for example, I'm going to be supporting my team who's diving into an objective, and maybe I'm just going to be standing still, trying to lay down a lot of cover fire in close range, then I would say then that full recoil control build might be a better suited to you because you're not really about worrying like the aim down sights timing between you and the enemy that's facing you, like who's going to get to it quicker. Right, so that would be a way you can consider doing it. And typically that's what I'm going to be running. I'll run the light and suppressor, I'll run the heavy extended barrel, I run the stubby grip to give me at least a little bit of a boost of aim down sights, and then just a typical sight, nothing real wild and crazy because I'm kind of like a mixed range. So this to me is like an all-round build where I can fight a little bit up close, a little bit long range. I do want to note one quick thing. Because I tend to be so close, I tried using the blue laser. I didn't find a lot of change in my accuracy when I'm moving because I'm so close to the target, and with that such a high fire rate, any of the bullets I was missing at a close range, like it didn't really make a much of a difference to run that blue laser. So I would say you might want to steer away from it. So that's a little bit about 3 different builds you can consider doing, like a middle of the road where you want to do some close, long range. You want full recoil control to be cover fire for your enemies, or you're going to go one-on-one with folks and you really need to get into a fast aim down sights type of speed so that you can, hopefully take down your target before they shoot you. So hopefully that helps for your M123K builds.